Hello and welcome to the Ramon Foster Show, brought to you by the Get Go Cafe and Market, where they are open 24/7. They are serving hot, fresh food, including tots.
Yeah. You know what? When I come up to Pittsburgh, I'm making you buy me tots. How about that?
Oh, really? That's how this works now?
Yeah. I mean, hey, we might as well. You keep talking about it. I gotta have them now.
I do. We have to have like 3 a.m. tots. It's totally different than having 3 p.m. tots.
You're the night owl guy at 3 a.m. Like you're up. That would be you.
Everything's a little bit better at that time of night. There's no question about that.
Well, that depends.
Let's talk about someone else potentially getting better. And it might be the least likely player on the roster you would think to get better because he's the best player on the roster, and that's TJ Watt, the reigning defensive player of the year. He insists, Moan, and he did this again this week at OTAs, that his best football is, quote, ahead of me. And when he says that, I'm going to continue reading this. There are so many areas in which I can feel like I can improve in the weight room, in the off season, finding little details. I'm not satisfied. Now, that is what you would expect of a player of that caliber. But how realistic is that?
Very.
Really? You think he can be better than what we just saw in 2021?
You know why he can be better?
Why?
He missed 2 games last year and had 22 and a half sacks.
And he was banged up in a lot of the games. He missed partial games too, remember?
Come on, the year before that, remember, it was the groin, I think, before that.
Recurring,
He's completed 2 full seasons of missing no games. And now that he has an extra game, I was hoping he was able to really played the 17 last year and get, because they're saying, well, he had the extra game and stuff like that. I wanted him to smash that sack record, man, as far as that went. Is it better? Yeah, I can say this. Well, is this best ball? Yes, because I don't think some teams' offensive line play is as good as it's been too. And that's not his fault. It's just TJ capitalized on the fact that they got to put a focal point on those positions and be better at it. The other aspect of it is, too, if you look at his stat line, though, 2DK, it kind of proves that he is getting better by the year. It really is not. I hate being stat guy, but it backs up what you're doing. His second year in the league, 13 sacks. Third year in the league, 14 and a half. And then he goes 15. And then he goes off and get 22 and a half. And I'll say this too. I think TJ gets slighted sometimes because everybody points at JJ, or everybody points at Aaron Donald, or everybody points at anybody but him. And you got to say to yourself, I know
Myles
he's driven.
Garrett. They will occasionally point to Myles bleeping Garrett over TJ Watt.
It's because of the specimen that he is. Myles Garrett deserves all of the eye test.
Sure, give him all the specimen awards.
That specimen awards.
You know what?
Him
and Bud Dupree and a couple other guys can run for Specimen of the Year award. Have it as their own category,
All of those things. And I'm looking at TJ, though, and I remember when he came in and everybody was like, that's JJ's brother. He don't look anything like JJ. You know what I'm saying? And even there was a coach at the time who was like, I ain't sure about him. Like all of those things. So that chip is never going to leave his shoulder. That idea that he's chasing behind his brother, I think it's a good thing internally, family-wise, the competition between one and another. And those are the reasons I think he's pushing to be better than what he actually is right now. Simply because he's out to prove everybody wrong. And I do think he has a lot left in his tank if he can play the full 17 or just get completely better at all the things he does good. Now, you got to think he's just, 5 years in? About to go into his 6th year, and he's doing these things now.
I know. It's crazy. And the thing is, there is actually another gear to his game because we're basing this, partially on health, but I'm going to throw in another variable.
Go ahead.
He was the defensive player of the year in the National Football League in a season in which the defensive line was getting gashed, with all due respect to Cam Hayward, who was being asked to play essentially all 3 positions. If Alex Highsmith takes another step forward in his progress on the right side, now you're talking about, for those few teams, and there are only a few teams that do it, who will gimmick something to stop TJ, you now have that taken away. It's just not an option for you.
Can we bring up Miles Jack also? That
you
middle
can. You're more familiar with him than I am.
The focal point of having him who plays with that same type of nastiness that TJ does. That's the thing I've always respected about Miles Jack. He plays that way. He is that attitude. He'll hit you and you say, okay, and he'll laugh. Like, that's him also. And I say this, I think Miles Jack being there and dragging, you know what I'm saying, Devin Bush along with him with their play this year is going to free that up for him. It's almost like pick your poison amongst those front seven. And TJ playing off the right side of the offensive line too, against right tackles, I think is going to expose a lot of teams where that position as far as offensively has to become more and more important. Like, size don't matter to TJ. Who you are doesn't matter to TJ. It's a matter of him versus himself on how he can get to you. His bend, as far as turning the corner, has gotten so much better as a player as far as his flexibility. He's a student of the game. He's been that from day one. But considering that he's just now starting to get into that, what they like to call the glory years of playing in the NFL, if his body sustains, man, I could see him 25 sacks. Realistically, he could have gotten it last year, if we're being honest about it. And we can say that in hindsight, considering he got the 22 and a half. But in hindsight, like, if he plays 17 against those other two teams that he missed, I think he shatters the record in a fashion that maybe Micah Parsons at some point, but it's not. He roams around differently than what TJ does. He's going to get better, and that could be scary for a very long time, and especially if Highsmith gets a whole lot better. Like, you can one-side the defense as all as you want to, keeping tight ends, but it handcuffs your offense too.
Yeah, you ultimately still need, in addition to all this, you do need support for him. Derek Tuska showed well in the second half of last season. I don't know that he's a number 3 outside linebacker in the NFL. We'll see. That would be ideal. I want to throw in this little nugget here. TJ just had 22 and a half sacks, as you mentioned, this past season. If he gets 18 this coming season, he would join Reggie White as the only player in NFL history to have 90 in his first 6 seasons. Reggie, the Reverend, had 95. TJ is in some different
rare
bracket, man.
Rare.
And if he does get better, wow.
Like I said, look at his numbers. Like, they're insane, and not just this aspect of it too. DK. Not only is he sacking you, he's trying to rake the ball and get a fumble too.
Oh, we're not even. Yeah, we're talking about sacks here as if that's the thing. No, he's
TFLs.
He's TFLs. He's FFs. He's FRs. He's INTs. He's PDs. He's everything across the board. He's just a freak of nature. Really is. When we come back, we're going to talk about Welcome back to the Ramon Foster Show. As promised, this second segment's going to be about football. Because I had no idea what we were going to talk about next. So let's extrapolate on the football subject and get into football when it feels like 95-degree temps, as it has this week on the south side. Mon, it was out in the middle of those fields, out between 2 and 3 this week, monitoring the practice that was happening on the second field, the last of the Steelers fields before you get to the pit ones.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I was dying out there, and I'm doing nothing. I'm just watching. And even though it's football in shorts, as Mike Tomlin likes to say, it's something, isn't it?
It's still hot, okay? It still gets swampy, as I like to call it, man, as far as the way you feel about practice. Like, there was a picture of us floating around on social media on Instagram. I put it on my story not too long, the other day, man, and it was us in an OTA setting. And all I could think is, look how tired we look. Okay,
this is the one of you and Ben and
Pounce and DeCastro
and Marquise Pouncey and Dave, and you're walking out, and there's Moan in the back looking like, where's the ice cream?
And Dave got that look on his face like, when is it over? And Ben is just chilling. It looked like it's a
Ben's
day
fine.
off. He's fine.
Ben's totally fine.
But there's no substitute, man. It really ain't for conditioning yourself. Like, and I'm not talking about wind sprints. I'm not talking about stamina as far as you being able to just run and run and run. No. I don't care how much running you've done. I don't care if it's the spring, summertime, or in camp. You gotta get in football conditioning. And that's one of those things in which you got to know how to pace yourself. You got to know how to pace yourself. As I was choking on my own spit. You got to know how to pace yourself. You got to know how to be able to finish a practice. When do you go? When do you pull back, man? And that sounds so cliche, like, oh, you guys not going 100% every rep. It's not about that. It's about being able to sustain yourself throughout the course of a practice in which you know when to water up. The coaches got to take care of you a little bit too, but it's just being in that sun the way you are and under that equipment and under that helmet and with those cleats on. It's a difference, man. And I wish I can explain it to people. I've been hearing and reading articles about rookies just dying in practice across the entire NFL, not dying literally, but just tired and gassed. And I'm like, that's because they don't know the pace. It's not that they're bad pros or out of shape. They just don't know the pace, man. And it's also after the fact. I preach this to my kids too all the time. Like, water up before you go out. You know, and Coach Garrett Guimond and Norwig, they force that upon guys day in and day out.
Force is the operative term here. That's what I was going to jump in and say that, you know, this week at OTAs, and this is now in COVID times, where the water isn't distributed through a single hose the way it was in the past. There are now multiple hoses. And for example, I was in one end zone when the tight ends were doing their drills, and you know what their drills are?
Oh, hitting the heavy
human
bag.
versus sled. Human versus sled. Okay. Yeah. You know, you're a tight end and you're thinking, I mean, I also catch a football here. Can we just catch some footballs here, or are we just going to mash sleds? So they do the sled thing, and immediately there's a staff member who's there, and these are the student trainers, the staff that are there. It's not optional.
No.
They roll the water cart out into the end zone. They did for these tight ends. Mm-hmm. And it's, let's go right now. Like, it's part of the drill. They're not taking any chances on hydration.
No, and it's football is one of those sports, man. I know I'm a former football player, and I speak about it differently than almost any other sport, DK. But it's one of those sports, man, where you have to put on extra luggage. You have to go outside in the elements. You have to do exactly what you said you were going to do when you had on playing the game. That's one of the reasons why, like, I've held my youngest kid back as far as like playing tackle football in like the 5th or 6th grade. I'm like, no, because you still think football is fun, and it's not. Like, it's the one thing in which it's the one sport. Basketball, throw a ball out there, wood court, it's air conditioning. Or if you go play outside, whatever. Hockey, you're putting on equipment for that, but you're inside and it's cold. I know the body control of the skates is one of the things. Baseball, you play baseball for 40 years, okay? But soccer is the same thing. Like, the physicality of the sport, pushing bodies, catching balls through the air, running, cutting, cleats, pads, helmets. Outdoors, no matter the elements.
Hot or cold. You have to be intent. And being a true pro in those type of elements in which you brought up today is hot in Pittsburgh, okay? Or here in Tennessee. It's a mindset. It's where that whole mental toughness, it really does come into play when we're talking about, you know, being good at the sport of football. And I enjoy watching young guys grow better. You know, Chooks is a guy that's going to be better from that. Watching Najee now, you know, how they train in the offseason, where they're training in the offseason, whether it's dry heat in Arizona that's 112 degrees outside, or whether it's somewhere in Alabama where it's 90, but it's also humidity in like the 70s or something like that. So it starts early and often. When we come back, a Hey Mon that you're absolutely not going to want to miss. Welcome back to the Ramon Foster Show. As promised and not overpromised, a really, really good Hey Mon. This one comes from Jim, who asks, Hey Mon, Troy Polamalu has spoken about how special it is to be a Steeler and how the approval of past legends is the ultimate that each player should hope to achieve. As a Steeler, did you, Ramon Foster, feel that way? Did that create extra pressure, or was it a source of pride? Jim ends by saying, I love your show.
Oh, man.
Told you.
Troy hit it spot on. That's so good. Troy hit it spot on. Okay. It does mean something. I've even had friends of mine bring up the fact that, man, you don't know what it means to play for one organization. I'm like, what are you talking about, man? I was in a great place. Like, no. You're a Steeler for life. This is guys that played on other teams. These are guys that played for, other historic organizations, but didn't last or didn't retire there. And to that point of having the older veterans, the older legends, just give you praise or honestly talk to you, respect you, know your name. Damani Dawson, one of the first ones you're like, that's the money. And then you look him up and you're like, man, goodness, like this guy's a freaking legend. I'll even go as current as Hines Ward, being able to be on the same field as him and have a good block or something like that and have him as legendary as he is. But one of my most proudest moments was being able to be on he wanted my number to talk to me. Joe Green. Me and Joe Green and I having a conversation on the phone talking about certain stuff within the league or with the team. That in itself, it was what was it? It may have been some union stuff or some player stuff going on. And he reached out to somebody that we both knew, and just to be on the phone and have his respect of being a guy that he could go to and say, hey, we should do this, or the team is this. And, it was an in-depth conversation I'd rather not get into because it was, the business of either the team and the league, and just to have
I would imagine he did most of the talking.
He did, but also meeting him when I covered or meeting up with him when I covered the draft. And I have that picture on my profile with he and I smiling together and stuff like that, and just him speaking about the season we had just had, the hope he had for the Steelers and stuff like that, like letting me know that he knew who I was and I was doing my job. Because I guarantee you, if I was a slappy, he wouldn't have been reaching out and having that conversation. Another guy, Franco Harris. Marquise and I having dinner with him and just sitting back and talking. It wasn't any other thing where he wanted to go have dinner with Marquise and myself and just talk. And I was just like, it doesn't get any better than that. Like to have those type of legends that come about, or Mel Blount or Lynn Swann that walks in and you think, man, I'm an offensive lineman in this era that can't even touch what yours did. And you know me, you respect me, and you have conversations with myself also. Nothing absolutely gets better than that, especially from that organization. I say nothing gets better from it. Yeah, I'm being very over the top with it as far as life goes. But in the world of sports and what the Pittsburgh Steelers mean to the National Football League, to the city of Pittsburgh, and to its people, that's very important. There'd be people that would die to have that conversation, to have the phone numbers, or to have them say your name personally, and not in a scorning type of way, but just in appreciation. It means a lot. So for me to have retired as a Pittsburgh Steeler, to not go play for any other organization, and the world of, things falling right from the football gods, I wouldn't have had it any other way. There was no other organization worthy of that. And I know, of course, the Giants got their history, Cowboys, Raiders, blah, blah, blah. But Pittsburgh, and to get the tip of the hat from one of their legends or a few of their legends. I mean, I even go as close as Joey was a guy I watched growing up. Like, I could continue to go on and on and on. And even some of the legends I played with, Kiesel, Brett, there's so many of them. Ace Smith, Smitty, like Ferrier, like James Harrison, like James will text or will comment with each other on social media. Like that in itself, you're part of that group. Like, I think it really just means more in Pittsburgh because you get that aspect of family. You get that aspect that you did the same thing and your goals were all the same, whether we accomplished them or not. It's beautiful.
You had me at Joe Green. I got to tell you to close out the show today, because I'm obviously not going to touch anything that you said there, that a few years ago in Latrobe, and I saw Mr. Green up by, where the upper dorms are.
Oh, yeah.
Up where the media is up there. And he's outside, and I saw him there, and I thought, man, I could get an interview with Joe Green here. I could do this. I can do this. And I walk up to him, And for the first time in my career, and I mean, I'm a lifer in this business, I said, Mr. Green. I've never used Mr. with anybody before or since. And the man was a perfect gentleman through the entire ensuing interview. And I can honestly tell you, I don't remember a single word that he spoke as he was speaking, because the whole time I was just like, this is me, Joe Green, you know?
The cables, you know what I'm saying? The jumper cables to the organization as far as when it turned over is him.
Yeah, no, he created this.
Or Ambassador Rooney.
Yeah.
Like, I was shocked that he knew my name, and I know I'm employee. No. It wasn't that. Like, it's just different. It is. So to get that pat on the back, the tip of the hat, it lets you know that you are a true pro in that city.
Jim, you nailed one there.
He did.
That was one of the better Hey Mon questions we've ever had. Let's do this again tomorrow, Mon.
Man, let's do it.